It was once all about the race. If you weren't ahead, you were out of the game. But when everything stopped, we saw the chance to change the game and begin a new path. This time, the bottom line won't be our finish line. This time, we'll chase investments whose real interest is care. This time, every step we take doesn't just change the world, but protects it. This time, our tech advancements will propel human betterment. This time, we will run the longer race, because the most rewarding pursuit is leaving a world greater than what it is.
On our 31st year, we celebrate having delivered some of the most prominent buildings in Metro Manila, particularly in the water sector across the country, as seen with the Malampaya Gas-to-Energy Project, East La Mesa Water Treatment Plant, Bugo Cannery Waste-to-Energy Plant, and the Glorieta Redevelopment District Cooling System. Our desire to shape a better world is fundamental to everything we do. Through the years, Arup in the Philippines has fostered a culture of initiative, creativity, and sharing enabling us to offer our clients with the right people who can give the best solutions for their projects. We are the trusted partner of the Philippines Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Works and Highways, and the Asian Development Bank in delivering big-ticket infrastructure projects with a combined worth of 8.7 trillion pesos or 130 billion pounds. We look forward to more years of planning, designing, building, and creating a better Philippines, a better world. We are ARU.
These are poor households in the Philippines that benefited from the water and sanitation financing provided by partner organizations of water.org. Listen to their stories.
Yung aming pong sitwasyon noon, nung wala pa po kaming water connection, mahirap po, masakit sa balikat kasi po medyo malayo nga po yung giban namin. Tulad niyan po may bakod. Medyo minsan po, hindi masyadong malinis yung tubig. Pag umuulan, marumi. Kaya kung minsan po, nagkakasakit yung mga anak ko dahil sa dumi ng tubig.
Noon po ay kami nakikikadlo lang po doon po sa kabilang kanto. Ang laki ng aming binabayaran. 700 mahigit. Ay sa ngayon, ay sawa na sa tubig, nagbabayad po ako ng mura. Ang aming bill ngayon ay nasa 200 plus lang po isang buwan, kaysa kami nagbabayad doon ng mahal. Tapos ay anong bilis kong maglinis ng kubeta ko, hindi katulad nung inaamag-amag tala sa hirap ng tubig. Ngayon po maganda na talaga.
Sir, for miro balay di unipa inilip-lip. Daso na matamat kot-kot naman. Pag kot-kot sa CR, pagbuta, awason ko naman na kag ikuha naman liwat.
Hindi malimpyo.
Hindi gidya sir hindi gidya komportable ang amon pang kwanto ya. Kay ko gidya. Kabataan ko yung kadagko na, yung mga dlaga ba, mga sultiro. Kabudlay, kagi kami gani sir, ka pamuson sa plastic, kagyaboy das kampo. Ang binipisyuhan kay sir, ito yung kabataan, safety na sila makapaligo, daway na sa may malili sila na. Manglimpyo, palibot diyo.
Sa una, sa wala pa may CR, mudagan may tungas kilometro ato sa akong mama. Perting paitaw mag-LBE mi, kay wala dyan may kasiaran. Ang akong anak, palibangon in taon na ho, anaras, yuta, ang kubkubon, kaya pa man may CR. Gamay pamampod, kuan, uwaw, ilibang ang zuta. Ilubong na namog siguro, kay di man po pwede ilabay, ka manimaho man sa silinganan. Karon, hayahay na kayo mi, kay naka-CR na mi, bisang mag-LBE mo gabi or adlaw, di na mi mudagan in taos, tungas kilometro. Kay niya naman may CR, nga nahuman na. Nang gabi ako nang buntag sayo, mata kong sayo kay magkaos. Nga namin ako eskwela. Yes, mga labada doon labuhonon dito atos tabay ya lukdog ray bugata. Sakit ning linhig pinasag tubig. Na hayahay na jud sir kay kanang mga bata maligo ni aram maligo na sila kuan na kay sa una maglitlit sa eskwela kay mantud palagig tabay ya dugay mga mata. Karon na zoy dako sa kausbanan kay ag ako di nako kapudso nandiyan na ako'y baboy marag tubig doon nya ako an po man laban ara bisag sagar sa rasa laba ko nindot na jud og kuan ay nga na ako'y tubig nga di na may sige palit og mineral di na kay mi kas bag kwarta nga sige palit kay tag 45 ya di rin nya karon nga ni mahal na tag 50 na kay 5,000 pa man mi. Gadali raman po noon kay na may ulan niya among iputa sa Maltabana mukuha lami para pambubulan dito sa among 48. Para pinagi na sa ulan niya among magamit niya bisag sa talibon puro lahi maglasa bisag giganahan pod mi anang inaana nga naabot diri sa amoa.
It was once all about the race. If you weren't ahead, you were out of the game. But when everything stopped, we saw the chance to change the game and begin a new path. This time, the bottom line won't be our finish line. This time, we'll chase investments whose real interest is care. This time, every step we take doesn't just change the world, but protects it. This time, our tech advancements will propel human betterment. This time, we will run the longer race. Because the most rewarding pursuit is leaving a world greater than what it is.
Good afternoon, mayors, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our third Livable Cities Lab for this year. Our topic today will be climate resilient water management, affordable quality water for all, presented together with the British Embassy Manila and in partnership with the League of Cities of the Philippines and Globe Telecom. Water is an essential resource for health and sanitation, drinking, washing, cleaning. It is critical for food production and energy generation. However, uneven population distribution, rapid urbanization, and climate change aggravates the challenge for water availability and quality. And depending on the season and the location, we either have too much water or none at all. Ahead of World Water Day in March, our lab will look at sustainable means of managing water resources. We all know that there is a need to build adequate infrastructure and technology, provide sanitation facilities, protect and restore the environment, and promote health and hygiene practices at every level. Experts will present a picture of how human action and inaction impact on water security and the concrete measures, innovative solutions, and best practices to address our water problem. More specifically, we'll focus on how individuals and communities, the private sector, and local governments can help to ensure access to safe and affordable water for all through climate resilient water management and approaches. To formally start our program today, let me first welcome our special guest. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce the Deputy Head of Mission of the British Embassy Manila, Deputy Ambassador Alistair Totti, to deliver his remarks. Ambassador Totti, over to you.
Hello, Bill. Thank you for the promotion. I'm still only a deputy ambassador, but you never know, one day. But look, thank you very much for inviting me to join. Good afternoon, everybody. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. I'm delighted to open this sustainability webinar series that the British Embassy is hosting with the Livable Cities Challenge. Following the Renewable Energy Forum last November, we now turn our attention to climate resilient water management. And I'm really pleased to join you all today and welcome our distinguished panel of experts who will share thoughts on water security and solutions. In the Asia-Pacific region, the ADB reports around 1.5 billion people in rural areas and 600 million in urban areas are still lacking adequate water supply and sanitation. Developing countries like the Philippines face serious water constraints and are yet to sufficiently protect urban populations against water-related disasters and diseases. Latest climate change predictions suggest the Philippines will continue to experience both warmer dry seasons and more extreme rainfall during the wet season. This will exacerbate both water availability during summer and the magnitude of flooding when typhoons hit. In addition to water stresses due to our changing climate, the proportion of people living in cities is expected to balloon from 55% today to 68% by 2050. This will only increase pressures on limited water resources. According to water.org, more than 3 million Filipinos rely on unsafe and unsustainable water resources, while 7 million lack access to improved sanitation. Even washing our hands, which we now take for granted as our first line of defense against COVID, is a luxury that many still cannot afford. In growing cities across the country, LGUs will need to be more innovative just to keep up with the growing demand of some 13 million people for adequate water and sanitation services. The health and well-being of everyone and the efficient functioning of business and industry has never been more dependent on water quantity and quality. And this should be at the forefront of our climate change discussions as much as emissions reductions. Climate-proofing our water infrastructure and adopting sustainable operational practices are both vital measures if we are to balance the needs of people and the environment. So I'm delighted that today we will hear from Aboitiz and Manila Water about how they are improving efficiency and incorporating sustainability in their operations and distribution networks. I'm also delighted that we have UK experts, Arup, Resitec and others to share specific case studies on local projects that highlight urban water resilience. The UK is recognised globally for our strengths in smart city planning and technologies. So we are well placed to support and collaborate with LGUs and businesses here in the Philippines in fields such as geospatial analytics, digital monitoring of groundwater sources, treatment technology for wastewater and sewerage, smart water metering, and many more. I hope that with guidance from our experts, our discussions can make a real world change to how we see the problems and its solutions. Maraming salamat, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Ambassador Alistair Totti, and thanks as well to the British Embassy for being such a strong and long-term partner, actually, of Livable Cities Challenge, supporting us in not only the Livable Cities Labs but also through our dashboard. So thank you very much for that. Now let me turn over to Sui Suarez, who will discuss the house rules and safety reminders. Sui will also be our moderator for today's panel discussion. He is a core team member of Livable Cities Challenge and is an energy industry professional with 25 years of experience at Shell. He has studied cities and climate change at the London School of Economics and is currently the Vice President for Reputation Management at Aboitiz Power. Let's all please welcome Sui Suarez. Sui, over to you.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks again for the kind introduction. And magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. And thank you all for joining our webinar this afternoon. Before we proceed, I'd like to call everybody who's part of our panel to join Deputy Ambassador Alistair Totti, to join Vin and myself for a quick souvenir photograph. So, good. I think our admin is getting everybody back on screen. So if you could just center yourself on screen and look at your camera. Okay, and some more. Great. So everybody have a look at the camera and give it a good smile. Thank you. And our staff are taking the photos. So thank you for that. And thank you, Deputy Ambassador Totti, for opening our webinar this afternoon. Before we begin, I'd like to go through a few of our safety reminders. First, let's be aware of our surroundings while the webinar is ongoing in case you need to stop due to an emergency. And second, always stay safe and practice social distancing if you are out of your home. Next, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Livable Cities Facebook page. Questions may be asked in the Zoom Q&A chat box, which includes a feature that allows you to vote for questions posted by others simply by clicking the thumbs up button next to the question. Some of these questions will be answered directly by our speakers or their staff, while others, will be parked for later in the Q&A or open forum. If you're joining this webinar through Facebook Live, you may place your questions in the comment section of Facebook, and then we'll pick up your questions from there. At the end of the webinar, we ask you, our participants, to please stay and fill up our feedback survey, because your response will help us improve our Livable Cities Lab series, and you will also get a certificate of participation by answering the corresponding question within the survey. So currently, we have more than 200 people attending this Zoom webinar at the moment. So thank you once again for spending your afternoon with us at the Livable Cities Lab. So to get our program going, I'd like to ask a couple of poll questions. First, we'd like to know where you are this afternoon. So there you go. So this is the question, where are you joining us from? So we have 4 choices. First is Metro Manila, second, rest of Luzon, third, Visayas, fourth, Mindanao. If you can click one of those four circles, and we'll find out where you are, no? Our audience, where you are this afternoon. Okay, let's see. Okay, 40% are from Metro Manila, 28% from the rest of Luzon, Visayas and Mindanao, 13% and 19% respectively. One more poll question before we get going. And if you were paying attention to the opening remarks of Deputy Ambassador Alistair Totti, you'll pick this up. So the question is, in the Philippines, how many people lack access to safe water? Okay, just three choices. Number one, 1 million. Two, second is 2 million. Three is 3 million. Third choice is 3 million. Okay, so if you're paying attention, according to water.org, this was cited by Deputy Ambassador Alistair Totti in his opening remarks. Let's see. Okay, what are the results of our poll? Aha, good, 3 million, that's correct, no? 54, more than half got it right. Because according to water.org, more than 3 million people in the Philippines, no? Not just 3 million, more than 3 million people in the Philippines rely on unsafe and unsustainable water sources, and about 7 million people lack access to improved sanitation. So that was what according to water.org. So thank you for answering these 4 questions, and I hope that this helps set up the conversation this afternoon. So let's kick off today's webinar by introducing our first presenter. Attorney Joe Christine, or Kay Salera, is the head of Manila Water Company's Enterprise Regulatory Affairs Group for the East Zone. She is an experienced lawyer with a demonstrated history as an elected local government official and national government accredited leagues officer. Prior to joining Manila Water Company, Attorney Kay worked in a law firm where she enjoyed litigation. She was also a public servant, being the elective vice governor of Masbate province from 2015 to 2019, and senior board member from 2013 to 2015. She was the elected president of the Lady Local Legislators League of the Philippines and served as Assistant Secretary General to the Union of Local Authorities of the Philippines from 2017 to 2019. To present about climate resilient water management, let us welcome Attorney Kay Salera. Attorney Kay, hello. Magandang
Hi,
hapon.
thank you. Thank you, Siri.
Okay, good. You're coming in loud and clear, so the stage is yours. On to you.
Okay, I would request my colleague here with me, Aya, our public policy manager, to share our presentation. So Mr. Bill Luz of the Livable Cities Philippines, Mr. Patrick Chua of APEC Business Advisory Council, the Deputy Head of Mission, Alastair Totti of the British Embassy of Manila, the League of Cities of the Philippines, Globe Telecom. Thank you for the opportunity you're extending to Manila Water with this worthy event. To my fellow speakers and to all the attendees who are here with us today, good day to all of us. On behalf of Manila Water, it is with gratitude that we share our views on climate resilient management and fervently hope that our exchange of ideas would lead to a better appreciation of the sustainable management of water resources, especially in the context of the still ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, where the water sector plays a key role in the protection of our communities. As a quick background, Manila Water is the provider of water and wastewater services to over 7 million people in the Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewerage System, or MWSS, E-Zone concession in 23 cities and municipalities of Metro Manila and of the Rizal Province. We are a publicly listed company led by the Razon Group, which is well known for the solid track record and global experience in managing regulated businesses, as well as in successfully operationalizing concession contracts and public-private partnerships. We are also partly owned by Ayala Corporation, one of the oldest and most respected conglomerates in the Philippines with a diversified business portfolio. Since 1997, E-Zone residents have seen significant improvements in water and wastewater services brought about by Manila Water's efforts to expand distribution lines and reduce system losses. These measures increased water service connections that have 24-hour availability of water, to 98.67% with 100% compliance with Philippine national standards for drinking water. We are currently serving 7.31 million population and have an average year-to-date non-revenue water percentage of not more than 15%, which is clearly a global benchmark. Apart from caring for our customers by delivering safe and reliable water, we ensure that water consumed by customers are properly treated before discharging it back to rivers and waterways. Manila Water has also ventured into major cities outside Metro Manila through Manila Water Philippine Ventures, MWPV, and the Asia Pacific region through Manila Water Asia Pacific. Even with the pandemic, Manila Water endeavored for better ways of servicing our constituencies and have adopted and prioritized development of innovative approaches designed to maximize efficiencies in our operations. Innovation and the application of technology for process improvements, operations, data, and science-based decision-making have been critical and necessary as we deliver and aim to be a global water utility and benchmark. On the integration of digital and advanced technology, the application of digital technology and its integration into our operations management center is a pivotal pillar that allowed us to better manage incidents based on real-time status of our facilities. We can immediately respond to incidents and adjust as needed because we have a common operating picture that supports calculated decision making. This goes in parallel with the application of advanced technologies involving weather data processing. Weather data analysis and information are essential in the company's overall continuity strategy, particularly on making our dam operations and management more efficient. In line with this, we've also launched the Manila Water app to facilitate electronic transactions, which are now part of new normal customer initiatives undertaken to enhance our engagement platforms. On climate resilient asset management, having well-functioning water management system that is resilient to extreme weather events and other natural calamities were made possible through the years with Manila Water focusing on projects to improve overall water system resiliency and efficient response. For this purpose, in-house studies have been developed to form part of the organization's overarching natural calamity risk mitigation and contingency plans. Our efforts include the institutionalization of resiliency and adaptation assessment in the planning, construction, operation, and maintenance of all assets, including retrofitting and the incorporation of climate resilient features. On environment protection, through watershed management and advocacies, creating positive impact for the future is a commitment that we have undertaken. Our advocacies include tangible measures for the protection of the environment. It is more than just an obligation on our part because our vital dependency on ecosystem services calls upon us to become responsible stewards of nature. The rehabilitation, protection, and enhancement of watersheds and water resources are some of the activities that we have consistently undertaken in partnership with our regulators and key stakeholders. Our long-term watershed rehabilitation program is also complemented by the conduct of engagement activities through the Lakbayan Water Trail, which is Manila Water's education program to help raise awareness on responsible water consumption. On wastewater treatment, at the end of the water value chain, we would see our intensified efforts to improve wastewater treatment and management within regulatory standards. Our wastewater operations team have developed innovative solutions and implemented operational adjustments relative to biological nutrient removal, which is a process used in wastewater treatment plants. Wastewater treatment is indispensable in preventing the pollution of rivers and lakes and in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. On energy efficiency initiatives, we have continuously innovated to further improve the energy efficiency component of our operations. From 2014 to 2019, we have secured the ISO 5001 Energy Management Certification for 10 of our largest energy-consuming facilities. We have also expanded the energy management system to cover all our facilities. We started rolling out the use of renewable energy in our operations to minimize electricity consumption. We have also started the installation of solar panels in some of our facilities in the E-zone and are looking at sourcing renewable energy and have also incorporated the use of solar energy in our business units in Clark, Boracay, and Laguna. As For supporting innovation platforms, Manila Water supports platforms to harness stakeholder-led innovations for generating solutions and improvements in the country's water and sanitation sector. Manila Water, in partnership with the USAID, the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, Maynilad Water Services, and other key players from the water innovation sectors, have supported the Philippine Water Challenge, a platform where stakeholder participation is encouraged in generating innovative solutions and improvements for the water and sanitation sector. Also, the Manila Water Foundation, in collaboration with the Department of Science and Technology and the Philippine Technological Council, also established a platform to recognize engineers with a prize for engineering excellence, a biennial award and the first ever recognizing body in the country that honors engineers who made notable contributions and significant social impact in the areas of water, sanitation, environment, and sustainability for marginalized communities. On research and development, Manila Water accelerates on nature-based solutions and pilot projects of our R&D team now in full swing to explore the scaling up of these innovations to complement conventional treatment processes. The World Bank actually recently also recognized Manila Water for our commitment to becoming a utility of the future, or a future-focused utility which provides reliable, safe, inclusive, transparent, and responsive water supply and sanitation services through best fit practices. We also received recently the Best Sustainability Award at the Asset AAA Sustainable Capital Markets Country and Regional Awards 2020 for the company's debut issuance of $500 million sustainability bond in the international capital markets. The offering is the single largest sustainability bond issued by a listed private water utility in Asia and the first ASEAN sustainability bond by a corporate issuer from the Philippines. But we are also not exempt from the rigors of the pandemic. We have likewise been exposed to profound challenges, and with the hard lessons learned, we have adopted to the new normal and implemented innovative ways towards inclusive recovery. Our adaptability and capacity to find agile solutions in a highly unpredictable environment have become crucial in this time more than ever. Part of the efforts we have undertaken were to seriously accelerate technological innovation and investments in digital infrastructure. All our successes have also been made possible with our partners in government taking on the lead role. At the national level, agencies tasked to oversee and assist the water sector, such as the MWSS, the Regulatory Office, the National Water Resources Board, Local Water Utilities Administration, and the National Irrigation Administration, in cooperation with local government units, continue to be proactive and find solutions to ensure that water and wastewater services are excellently delivered to communities. The collaborative engagements we have had with each other are pivotal in ensuring the sustainability of our operations. Even with the pandemic, Manila Water proactively moves forward to nurture partnership supportive of the country's path to recovery. We at Manila Water remain a proactive partner of government and of institutions and civil society organizations in this endeavor. We are here to help as much as we can to provide shared value and much needed support given the spectrum of challenges that we face together as one community. And making the path towards recovery more inclusive and sustainable is at the core of what we do. Together with all the key players in the sector, our mission doesn't just stop in the provision of water and wastewater services. Our mission lies in the empowerment of communities, and this we could achieve by building on our core competencies through innovative solutions and with every key stakeholder's cooperation. That would be all. I am sharing my email address. It's there flashed on the screen and other official channels of Manila Water. And you may send me an email for collaboration and any further inquiries. Let us continue our meaningful conversations and we put our hands together as we address our challenges moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney Kay. No? Alam mo, it's really quite impressive how your entire presentation is riddled with the theme of working together, no, collaboration, and uh, just doing things together really makes a difference in the water sector. So thank you once again for that presentation, and we'll speak to you more later in the open forum.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. So again, if you have some questions, I see there's already one question in the Q&A box, no, of Zoom. So please, if you have more questions to Kay or to our other presenters, please feel free to put it there. And if you like that question, you can vote it up by clicking on the thumbs up button. So let's present let me introduce pala our next presenter. This is Anna Lu. So Anna is the first vice president for the water business of Aboitiz Infracapital and president of Apo Agua Infrastructura. He is currently constructing a bulk water facility in Davao City, capable of delivering over 300 million liters of water per day. She is a certified public-private partnership professional with 15 years of experience in providing infrastructure advisory and capacity building services to governments, private sector parties, and multilateral organizations across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. An advocate of PPPs, Anna has worked on projects in various industries such as transportation, water, and social infrastructure. Prior to joining Aboitiz Infracapital, she worked with the Atkins Equity in Singapore and Dubai, providing project development and transaction advisory services to project investors and policy formulation advice to public sector clients. To speak to us about innovation in water resource management, let us welcome Ms. Anna Lu. Hello, Anna.
Hello,
Hi.
hi Joey. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I see that your presentation is up on screen and you're coming in loud and clear. So I leave it to you. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for spending the next maybe an hour and a half with us as we talk about a very important topic that affects everyone, water. So, specifically, I'll be speaking about innovation in water resource management, and I'll be giving some examples on how these practices can be applied. So first, just a brief situationer on our water resources. So for those of you who have had the unpleasant experience of having your shower interrupted because of a water interruption, this should come as no surprise to you that water scarcity affects more than 40% of the world's population. And sadly, by 2050, it is projected that at least 1 in 4 people will suffer recurring water shortages. Here in Asia Pacific, we have the lowest per capita water availability because though we house 60% of the world's population, we only have 36% of the world's water resources available. This makes it even more critical that we ensure that water is utilized sustainably. Finally, in the Philippines, 1 in 10 people still do not have access to improved water sources. And while over 80% do have access to water, more than 50% of them do not treat their water. So this means that there could be harmful pathogens or chemicals in the water that they are unaware of and they might be ingesting, which could lead to serious illnesses. So in areas where there is an abundance of groundwater, where the rate of use or withdrawal is greater than the rate of recharge, then there is a danger of over-extraction, which can cause the following. So first is the drying up of wells. Second would be saltwater intrusion. So normally, the aquifer holds enough pressure to counter the inland movement of seawater. However, when too much groundwater has been withdrawn, it changes the pressure in the aquifer and allows the salt water to intrude on our water table, making it unfit for human consumption and irrigation. So we see this already happening, particularly in coastal cities such as Cebu, and this is exacerbating the water crisis they already have in this city. And third, there is, of course, land subsidence, which is the sinking of the land surface due to the loss of water underground, which helps hold up the land. So when the land elevation drops, it can cause damage to structures above ground and makes the area more prone to flooding. So a prime example of this is what we see in Mexico City, where you can see certain roads have dropped, certain buildings are already uneven because of the over extraction of water. So What can we do to properly manage our resources? Well, first of all, before we withdraw water from various sources, we need to understand the availability and sustainability of these in the area. And this is done by conducting hydrology and hydrogeology studies where applicable. This we have done in our Lima Water business, which serves the water and wastewater needs of our locators in Lima Technology Center in Batangas. So by doing so, we are able to ensure that the rate of withdrawal is well below the rate of recharge and allows us to plan for future developments. Another is the conduct of a watershed management study in cases where surface water is coming from an identified watershed. So in Davao City, the raw water, which we will use to deliver treated water to the Davao City Water District, will be coming from the Panigan-Tamugan watershed. So recognizing the importance of safeguarding this watershed to ensure the quality and the quantity of water is not diminished over the years, we are currently conducting a watershed management study, and this is done in collaboration with the Watershed Management Council and the Panigan-Tamugan Watershed Protection Group, which will develop a plan to mitigate the impact of human activities in the watershed. So whether this is due to human settlement, human waste, or other agricultural practices. There are many more short-term and long-term actions that we can take. So I mentioned earlier the conduct of several studies, and included in this is sharing that information with relevant stakeholders and coordinating with them on how best to protect our water resources. This must be a concerted effort by the local government, the communities, and the industries in an area, because safeguarding our water resources is the responsibility of everyone. In areas where there are surface water sources available, we should explore the conjunctive use of groundwater and surface water. This is what the Davao City Water District had the foresight to do with the Davao City Bulk Water Supply Project, which will shift the city's dependence on groundwater to more sustainably sourced surface water, allowing the aquifer to rest and recharge, ready to go back online when the demand shoots up again. There's also progressive water pricing to ensure that we properly value water and discourage wasteful use of water. Non-revenue water management is the remit of the various operators, and of course, the lower the percentage, the less water is wasted. The main cause of this would be leaks, and in Lima Water, through a thorough NRW management scheme, we've been able to keep our NRW levels at below 5%, which is well below the acceptable threshold of 20%. There's also rainwater harvesting, something that can be explored, especially for non-potable domestic use. For instance, in Davao City, we've installed a rainwater harvesting facility in a public school for hand washing, very important for hygiene, especially during this pandemic. There's also gray water reuse, from simple things like using laundry water for flushing toilets to a more complex system for industrial use, such as the reuse of treated wastewater. So these are just some of the practices that can be implemented to help manage our water resources. I spoke of conjunctive use of groundwater and surface water, and I'd like to highlight how this is being done in Davao City. So unique to the Davao City Bulk Water Supply Project, which is currently being done by the Davao City Water District in partnership with Apo Agua Infrastructura, unique to this project is the country's first water treatment plant to apply the water energy nexus. So this means that the same water used to generate renewable electricity will be used to provide treated water. So from the Tamugan River, we are constructing a weir to extract the water needed from our facility while allowing the rest of the water to continue to flow downstream. It then goes through 8 kilometers of pipeline leading to our run-of-river hydroelectric power plant that will generate the electricity needed to power the water treatment facility, ensuring that the facility is self-sufficient. So from the turbines, the water will then go through our water treatment process, which will ensure that the water will meet the Philippine national standards for drinking water before being distributed purely by gravity through 57 kilometers of pipes to 8 different offtake points and reservoirs of the Davao City Water District. So we're very proud of this pioneering application of water energy nexus, and it's something that we hope can be adopted in water treatment facilities in other parts of the country. Going to Lima Water in Batangas, we've been working towards adopting a smart water network, wherein its water facilities turn into interconnected and intelligent systems. So once fully integrated, the smart water network is projected to lead to better operational efficiency, resource optimization by delivering the right amount of water and pressure based on what is needed through automatic adjustment of pumps and non-revenue water management aligned with its sustainability objectives. Finally, we are very delighted to be able to contribute in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So particularly SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation, where we implement innovative solutions such as the application of the water energy nexus and the smart water network. SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities, where we work with the government and the communities to protect our water resources by putting in place government policies and conducting various studies that will inform these policies. And finally, on SDG 17, on partnerships for the goals, we've partnered with the local governments, the water district, and other government entities and nonprofit organizations, and providing access to safe water for all by financing projects and utilizing the latest technologies. So at Aboitiz Infracapital, we believe in striking a balance among the interests of people, planet, and profit. And that is why we have made proactive investments to ensure that our success in business continues to bring meaningful societal change. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And we hope you enjoyed the presentation. And let's listen to the other panelists as they share their knowledge on how we can better manage our water resources.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. So a very impressive story you told about the how there's different components of watershed management, gray water reuse, rainwater harvesting, all great examples. Interesting that you mentioned about the raw water travels 8 kilometers. Is that by gravity also to the the
Yes,
hydropower plant?
correct.
Oh, and then from that another 57 kilometers. Again, no pumping stations all the way
None,
down, all by
all
gravity.
gravity, and then the water treatment is facilities powered by self-generated renewable energy.
Great, great story. I'm sure that will pique the interest of a lot of our viewers today, So thank you for that. Speaking of which, we have about 283 viewers on Zoom, Thank you again and for spending our afternoon with us, and thank you, Anna, for that presentation. We'll see you later in the open forum. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Next speaker. Let's go to our next speaker, and we have Gay Santos from Water.org. So through previous roles at the World Bank Group and the International Finance Corporation, Gay has more than 25 years of experience in investment and portfolio management, credit operations, and operational risk and advisory services. She retired from the World Bank Group in 2019. Today, Gay is the Regional Director for Southeast Asia for Water.org. It is a global NGO co-founded by Matt Damon and Gary White in 2009. It seeks to solve the global water and sanitation crisis. It is a pioneer in market-driven financial solutions on the global water crisis. Gay is a financial inclusion advocate and serves as the chair of the Financial Inclusion Committee of the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines. She sits as an independent director in various fintech entities in the Philippines. She developed the new financial literacy training program of the Philippines, uh, uh, of the Philippines Conditional Cash Transfer Program. She authored and co-authored studies in SME finance, insurtech, and social enterprises. She holds an MBA from the Johns Hopkins University and a certificate in international audit from the George Mason University. to speak to us today on inclusive water financing solutions. Let's welcome Gay Santos. Hello, Gay.
Yes,
It's
hi,
good to see you.
Sumi.
Good to see you
It's
again.
great. It's great to see you again. I'm glad you remembered. Allow me to
Yes,
share.
yes,
Yes, allow me to share
yes.
my screen.
Okay, I can hear you really well. Let's see your presentation. It's loading now. Okay, good. Great.
Okay.
It's all there. Okay, the
Yes.
stage is yours, Gay.
Thank you very much, Sumi. So, good afternoon, everyone. Honorable Deputy Ambassador Tafi, my friend and colleague in development work, Chair of Livable Cities, Bill Luz, Patrick Chua, partners in SDG 6 and development work. Good afternoon. It's a great honor to be here for the opportunity to introduce water.org, and I hope this will also serve as an invitation to work with us in solving the water crisis. I believe I'm preaching to the choir by quoting this. Placing water at the core of the city's urban planning and investment creates a strong foundation for sustainable growth. However, sustainability is hard to imagine if there's very constrained access to finance. So allow me to introduce water.org. So water.org was co-founded by the water engineer Gary White and the Hollywood actor Matt Damon. To date, we have reached 40 million people through innovative market-driven financial solutions to sustainable access to safe water and sanitation. We've done this to 154 active partners across 11 countries. Why are we here? There are 785 million people around the world who lack access to safe water. 2 billion, 1 in 3 lack access to toilet. Every 2 minutes, a child dies from a water-related disease, and 200 million hours are spent collecting water, especially delegated to women and children. Putting it in the context of the Philippines, there are 13 million people, 1 in 8, who lack access to safe water. 26 million people, 1 in 4, lack access to a toilet. 4.3 million people still practicing open defecation, and millions of septic tanks are not constructed properly. So how our operations work, our donors, our funds are generated centrally in the US with credible partners like the Hilton Foundation, Stella Artois, IKEA, the World Bank, Target, and others. Outside the US, that's where we implement our business operations. In the Philippines specifically, mostly we have partnerships with microfinance institutions, which includes Aboitiz Foundation. We have also partnered with local government as well as Manila Water Ventures and PAWAD. Most recently, we've expanded our partnership to bigger financial institutions, which includes Rizal Microbank under RCBC, Cantilian Bank. We've also reached out to FINEX, Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, which is an elite group of CEOs and CFOs in the Philippines. We've partnered with DTI to help them implement what they call Green Economic Development Program, and also partnered with Multisys, a technology solutions provider, in providing bridging that access to finance for safe water and sanitation. So we have two program models. One is we call Water Credit, where we work with financial institutions to teach them how to adopt a loan product and portfolio dedicated to water and sanitation. We provide technical assistance, in some instances, financial assistance, more directed towards capacity building. We also have what we call Water Connect, where we work with water utilities, districts, local governments, again, to provide technical assistance to enhance their operational efficiencies, financial management, to enhance their bankability, and improve their infrastructure. So going back to water credit, we reached the household level, those that are earning $6 and below on a daily basis. We allow people to choose their solution. It ranges from household taps, toilets, storage tanks, rainwater harvesting, community filtration, and others. What have we achieved to date under the water credit program? We have 3 countries where we operate in Southeast Asia, namely Philippines. We were established in the Philippines in 2014. The average loan size for households is $181. We have mobilized a total of $210 million and reached around 5 million people. In Indonesia, we started our operations around the same time, in 2014, $161 average loan. We have dispersed $95 million and reached 3 million people. In Cambodia, we're trying to go through the registration right now. Average loan size is $500. We have dispersed $190 million and have reached 1.6 million people. Most of these borrowers are women. So just to illustrate how we have partnered with local government, this is work in progress. We're in the process of convening Palawan Water and Multisys. As mentioned earlier, Multisys is a technology solutions company. Palawan Water is a water utility infra project of the Palawan city government. Multisys will bring in the tech solution to enhance operational efficiencies with timely billing and collection for better cash management. This will provide the building block for better analytics. And with better financial and operational efficiencies, it makes Palawan Water and other utilities more bankable. Yes, we have achieved a lot to date. However, there's much more that can be done. In my previous role, I have worked with the conditional cash transfer beneficiaries of the Philippines. In one of the icebreaker exercise, I've asked the beneficiaries, what are your wish lists in life? It's normal to find that they want their own business, they want to see their kids to college. But one thing that really humbled and stroked me is the fact that among their wish lists in life is to have their own water line and own electricity line. So just imagine what can be done in reaching out to 4.3 million households beneficiaries under the conditional cash transfer program of the Philippines. Other areas of opportunities, this is already happening. It's already happening in a lot of emerging countries. I hope it will be expanded in the Philippines. Digitizing water payments, pay-as-you-go water, affordable connections, digital government transfers. For instance, in Kenya, they have what you call water as you go. This allows low-income households to really control and budget their consumption of water. It increases accessibility. This is what you call probably the sachet culture in the Philippines, and I think much more can be done. And this can bridge and make water be more inclusive to a lot of the population. So like what I said, I'm just summarizing the opportunities. Water and sanitation is a timely and forever relevant issue. It is not just an accountability of the government. By having that public-private sector partnership, it can increase scale and reach in terms of solving the water crisis. Innovation, fintech technology is a means to promote greater inclusion, access to finance, and it can make water more accessible and affordable. Again, this is an open invitation to the LGUs to work with us. LGUs can be an instrumental convener linkage to us to solve the water and sanitation crisis across cities in the country. So solving the water crisis improves health, empowers women, enables equality, increases access to education, enhances resiliency to climate change, and it increases the family income. So we hope you can be part of our journey wherein we envision the day when everyone everywhere has access to safe water and sanitation. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Over to you, Sui.
Thank you, Gay. Thank you for sharing the model for water.org. So it's really it's a financial model, no? It is not a dolat. That therefore it makes it more replicable and scalable, right?
Yes, definitely. So yeah, they own the solution. That's the model we work by.
Wonderful. So I hope also that that's something that will stir the interest of our viewers today, and also elicit some questions later in the Q&A. So
Yes,
thank you, Gay.
thank
It's
you
good
very
to see you
much.
again. Okay,
Likewise.
good.
Thank you.
Okay, next to our next speaker today, let's move on, is Michel Trudel. He is a seasoned business development professional with extensive experience working with small startups, medium-sized enterprises, large companies, and across industries. such as ICT, mobile communications, SaaS software solutions, networking, hardware, and artificial intelligence. Michelle spent the last 14 years in Asia, growing the presence of companies such as Helveta, the traceability software platform for the forestry sector, IBWave, a 4G software planning tool, and Cambium, a Wi-Fi networking equipment, and recently joined Resatec based in Singapore to present on satellite remote sensing and AI platform for water utilities risk management. Let us welcome Michelle. Hi, Michelle. Oh, you're on mute. All right.
Here we go. Thank you so much
Okay.
for the introduction, Sui. Let me share my
Good.
screen.
Great. I can hear you well. Let's share your presentation.
Yeah.
Let's see it load up.
There we go.
Here we go. Yep. Okay, we see it. On to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone, and good afternoon. So my name is Michel. As Sui said, I'm sorry for the slight French accent, so I hope you can understand that. It'll be good practice for you. And this afternoon, we're going to speak about Resatec satellite remote sensing and AI data platform, which can help water utilities to better manage their risk. So a little bit on Resatec. The company was founded in 2012. It's about 50 people by now, so we're no longer a startup by any means. Most of the people in the company are very smart data scientists, Earth observation experts, as well as programmers. And we have products across 4 industries, but today we're going to focus on our water products. We have a number of customers in the US, in Europe, and we're now introducing the platform a little bit more actively in Asia Pacific. Just some very recent news. So Resatec was named the Future 50 company on PwC's 2022 climate report that was issued just last week, actually. And this is a list of companies of UK companies that will be instrumental in sort of helping mitigate climate change issues. So just a little bit more on what we do in the water sector. So upstream, we can help with dam monitoring. Sort of more midstream, we can do water quality assessment. And downstream, we can help water utilities with pipeline risk. This is city environment, suburban environment. And so this is sort of our water platform. What are the main challenges that are faced by water utilities? So we've already alluded to those in the discussion so far. So, you know, delivering a quality product to an ever-growing population. This is definitely a problem. The Philippines, the population is still increasing. Also, water scarcity. We've talked about that before as well. And aging infrastructure. What's interesting about these challenges is that most of those are actually outside the direct control of the water utility. A growing population, even water scarcity to a certain extent, you cannot always find new sources of water. So better managing the infrastructure is definitely more and more the focus of both the water utilities as well as the regulatory bodies. And the trend is to use smart technology, data analytics, IoT, Internet of Things solution. FinTech was mentioned as well. So all these new technologies are part of the solution. And this is exactly where Resatec fits in as well. So what is it that we do exactly? How does it work? Well, first, we take environmental data. So simple things like soil, the type of soil, the topology of the area. We also look at weather patterns. And we combine that with 2 types of satellite information that we can gather. The first one is in the microwave range, and that can give us access to very, very precise soil movement. So if there's ground movement to the scale of 1 or 2 millimeter, we can detect that. We also do in the visible range, we look at moisture levels as well as vegetation strength. So these are very often proxies for leaks that might be in the water network. So if trees are growing very fast, even during a dry spell, that kind of indicates that they might have broken into some of the pipes of the water network. Finally, we take information from the water utilities, things like the age of the pipes, their depth, their diameter, the material, any information that is available. Obviously, the GIS information, the geolocation of the pipes is very important. We combine all that in our software, and we also include historical failures that have occurred over the past 2-3 years, for example. And this information is used to train our software using machine learning and using AI. And the output is for every segment of the pipeline in the network, we can produce what is called the likelihood of failure. So what are the chances that any given segment of a pipeline might fail? We also combine that with some estimation of what the costs of repair might be. So if there's a failure in a more suburban, residential area, it might not be as costly as a failure, next to a highway or next to a hospital. And when we combine the likelihood of failure with the consequence of the failure, that gives us what we call the pipeline risk profile across the entire network. This is essentially the output of our system. So what does it help do? Well, first of all, obviously we can better predict what are the risks, where are the risks, and our water utility can maybe optimize all its programs for maintenance, for upgrades, from an operational point of view. There's big gains in terms of CapEx and OpEx. On the CapEx side, for example, one of the routine way to manage CapEx is to try to replace older pipes. Well, sometimes just because a pipe is old doesn't mean that it's not working properly. So if you have better information to actually manage your upgrades, it can obviously improve your return on CapEx. From an OpEx point of view, targeting the areas of the network that need upgrades is also very helpful. And then, very importantly, nowadays it's very important to have data sets that are up to date, that are integrated, so that can help with your overall digital transformation across the network. So validation, this is extremely important. So, what level of confidence do we have in our product? Well, we've done some field testing, what we call ground truthing. So we've been working with one of our partners in Australia called Detection Services. And for 4 areas here that you can see close to Melbourne, we have run the software for 2 areas were run for water networks and 2 for sewer networks. And we had 2 years of prior data. So a history of 2 years of data sets, all the data sets that were mentioned before. And after that, once we ran the software, over the next 6 months, we found that 50% of the failure were in the 20% of the network that was the most at risk. So that really helped to target the focus on the areas that were more at risk. These are some examples of what we saw. So for areas that were identified with a higher risk failure probability, when going to ground and sort of looking at the situation, we could see some subsidence along sideways. Here, for example, on the road, there's a little bit of undulation. And while these might look very small from the surface, very often these hide some bigger problems underneath, closer to the pipes. In terms of vegetation, areas where strong growth was identified, we could see that some manholes had been here penetrated. There was intrusion from some roots, or some of the main pipes also were were stoppages sometimes due to roots as well. This is very quickly just, what the system looks like. So here you have an entire network for a city. This one is in Kingston in Canada. And the pipes in red are the pipes with the highest likelihood of failure. You can see the entire network. The risk of failure is sort of ranked from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest likelihood of failure. And then for every segment, you can see all the data sets that are associated with that, the ground movement, the vegetation, all the information is available in the database. So just quickly to finalize the presentation, 2 case studies. We've worked with one water utility called Hera in Italy. And there, just as we mentioned before, 69% of all the pipeline breaks occurred in the segments of the network that were deemed to be between 4.5 and 5 in their risk profile. So that, again, is very, very useful. Similar result in Chicago, where on the first year, it was 60% of the failures, which were over 30% of the most likely areas to fail. And that improved to 70% on the subsequent years. So obviously, over time, as the system is trained, the system also gets better. Last slide to finalize. We've done some work in the Philippines historically. So just before the pandemic, we did a water quality monitoring project of Laguna Lake with Metro Pacific Water and Maynilad. We also did a similar project with Apo Agua in Davao. And just recently, we started a dam monitoring project with SN Abotiz, SNAP, where we're monitoring the Ambuclao Dam. So we're looking forward to coming back to the Philippines and meeting with you and discussing how we can support you. Please get in touch with us either directly through me or through our website. We'll be more than happy to engage. Thank you so much. Back to you, Asui.
Thank you, Michelle. A very interesting presentation. So, does the software help with like a AI-based predictive preventive maintenance work, right?
That's exactly it. So we take as much data available, we combine it with satellite information. The satellite passes any area on the planet every 6 days on average. So we can do some monitoring on an ongoing basis pretty much and give updates to the customers.
Great, good. I hope we do get some more questions. We have 8. A lot of the questions have disappeared because our panelists have been answering, and thank you for that. And Michelle, I hope to get you to answer some of the questions here on the Q&A. Thanks, and see you at the panel discussion later. All right, let me introduce now our final speaker. Thanks, Michelle. Well, our final speaker today is Adrian Martzen. Adrian is ARUP's water leader in the Philippines and Southeast Asia, based in the Manila office. His professional background is a chartered civil engineer, chartered water and environmental manager, and member of the Association for Project Management. He has been working on water-related projects for more than 20 years, starting in the UK, and then working in Eastern Europe, and more recently in the Philippines, Vietnam, and Cambodia. The majority of experience has been in the assessment, design, modification, and construction of water, wastewater, and waste-to-energy projects. He has been based in Manila for the last 11 years, acting as a project manager and project director on a range of master planning, feasibility, design, and construction schemes for a range of local clients. Having lived in Manila and traveled extensively around the Philippines over this time, he has had a good understanding of the needs and challenges in getting to a point where there is sustainable water infrastructure which supports economic development and growth. To present about rain and storm water solutions, a sustainable blue-green future, let us welcome Adrian. Hi, Adrian. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Sui. Hi.
Hi.
Let me just grab my slides.
I can hear you really well, so let's just see your
Good.
slides
Okay.
come on screen.
Okay. Are you seeing those now?
Got it. Here we go. Let's go, Adrian. On to you.
Excellent. So, good afternoon, everyone. Maganda hapon sa inyo lahat, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm going to talk about rain and stormwater solutions, so maybe a slightly different part of the chain to where some of the other speakers have been talking about. And as I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking about, we're looking at examples, but these problems are not problems that we just see in Asia. They're problems we're seeing all around the world. And this first image is actually one from just outside our office in one of our offices in the UK. What's good about this one is that it was designed as a moving weir. So there's a lot of stormwater in the area, a lot of flooding, and rather than going through and upgrading the infrastructure in the way we would have done in the past by building hard defences, this one, to manage that, they used a moving weir. And in doing so, we've minimized the amount of hard defences and the impact on people. And these are the sorts of solutions that we need to look at in all locations all around the world to make the most of how we do things and how we manage our spaces. So just to give you that little bit more background, Arup is a global engineering professional advice company. We've had the office in the Philippines for 30 years now, but we work all around the world in all sectors. I'm working with a number of the other people and organisations who are on this call today, including Manila Water, Maynilad, Apoagua. So I'm going to talk through, the detail on some of these areas, and really to say, actually, this is not a problem. It's actually more of an opportunity. We have to live with rain and stormwater. If we don't live with it, then there are going to be flooding issues. There are going to be negative impacts. And all the research and all the experience and projects we've been getting involved in more recently is that if we design with water, we open up opportunities. And hopefully what I can do through this presentation is give you some examples in the region, but also globally about what we can do. These images on the right here, these are actually from a resilience study that we did in New York, Hunters Point. And this was about opening up amenity value and giving people the access to water. And I suppose the vision here is that we want to take all spaces and re-engineer them, rework them so that we maximize them, and then we live with water and we don't end up with the negative impacts that we so frequently report. And it would be great, I guess, as a vision if we could have this as, the extension of a Manila Bay or the Pasig River, and making the most of it. The opportunities are going to be very different though. Where we have existing spaces, we have to take a very different approach to how we deal with new spaces. And this is not just about urban spaces, it's about rural spaces as well. What happens upstream or downstream of an urban space is just as important as what happens in the urban space, because those are the places that water's fed into or taken away from a place where maybe the majority of the population is, but people are still in those other places as well. And hopefully what I can reinforce is this, and I think some of the other presenters have talked about, all of these solutions need integrated thinking. We can't just look at solutions in a small individual context. We have to think about them in the wider scale. The two images here, the top, we're looking at, this is the traditional way of doing it, hard, sheet-piled concrete solutions, very unforgiving. They work up to a certain point, but beyond that point, the failure is quite catastrophic. Water goes over, it gets in the way, it causes problems. On the lower image, starting to be a little bit more creative and innovative. This is a movable flood defence, so we're living with the water here. We're managing the space, and through active management, we're able to avoid negative consequences and hand over space back to water where it's needed, with temporary restriction, but hopefully it doesn't cause too much damage or impact. So the opportunities are not about designing flood and rainwater management systems here. Actually, they're about managing uncertainty. They're about making places and driving towards sustainable targets. What we don't want to do, and I think Anna touched on this very well in terms of the integration of the hydro turbine, but what we don't want to be doing is sending water over a flood defence and then having to pump it back out again. What we want to do is avoid having to do that, because that's a waste of infrastructure, it's a waste of energy and power. So let me give you some examples, and these are not all in the Philippines. These are more general. But what I try and do is show to you that, by thinking through these things in the region and more globally, we can come up with solutions that work. This is a university campus in Vietnam, and it's not an architectural solution. Yes, the architecture is important here and the layout of the site, but in this particular case, there was visible water management around the catchment. There was reduced water usage in the buildings to minimize the amount of water. There was built-in storage in the campus, and there was good use of green space to handle that water. And this is important so that we don't pass water in and out of the development. We can hold it, and these hard infrastructures, our buildings, are going to create problems. But if we manage those runoffs, then we don't create an impact further down the catchment. And we've now got the experience, and I think a number of built environment professionals have got this experience to design these solutions in a way that works. And yes, this is a university campus, but it could just as easily be a mixed-use development of any of a number that are going on around the Philippines at the moment. Moving on very more to an existing space, and this is not an Arup project, but it's one that I think is perfectly transferable. This is actually in Rotterdam, and what's often known as the water squares. And what you can see in the image is, in this case, I think a football pitch, but I think you could think of that just as easily as being a baseball court or a basketball court. And in this situation, the area has been designed as a series of open detention basins. So during normal conditions, as shown in this photo, the space is available for use. It's got an urban amenity, a recreation value, an open space. But during a period of rainfall, the area is managed, so it's closed off by the local authority, and these basins are allowed to fill up with water. In doing so, they're providing that essential detention of flow and storage before it moves on downstream and it's released at a slow rate. And then, of course, it's tidied up. And these sorts of solutions then allow the whole urban area to be managed as a whole, with less impact as a whole, but also that we're making the most of these spaces where we can. I mean, traditionally we would design these as maybe buried tank structures, but we don't have to do that. There's something more that can be done with those. And I think we have to think about those as creative ideas. And in the planning processes that are adopted and the permitting processes that are adopted, we do that. Maybe coming back more to an Asian example. Again, we're back to a planning level, but this is Jurong Lake District, and this was part of an overall plan, an overall master plan for the area, and it's also been built out now. And water was an essential part. Storm and rainwater management were an essential part of the design process. Not only were buildings designed with, say, high efficiency fittings to minimize their potable water use, but there was rainwater harvesting built in and grey water reuse as an integral part of the building systems, so that we're minimizing the amount of water that's being used in the development as a whole. And the rainwater was managed, and the team that worked on this called this managed rainwater to create recreation and enhanced microclimates for the spaces in between the buildings. And their aim here was also to make the spaces walkable, so that there wasn't as much need for the heavy road infrastructure around the spaces. So if it's planned in from the outset or from the redevelopment of an area, we can get those sorts of benefits. Stepping up a level, and actually this example has got some similarities to what Michelle talked about a little earlier. This is a drainage master plan job that we worked on, and this relied heavily on the AI and the imaging technology. And what we did here was develop an urban drainage master plan from in a very relatively short period of time to unlock the understanding of how the water was moving around this urban area, so it could be developed effectively and quickly. And what we did, we used machine learning to classify the land use, or what the land was, identify, I think there were 13 typologies of land use in space, and then quickly connect up the areas where we had the water corridors, where water could move between spaces. In doing so, we were able to get relatively quickly a very good understanding of the places where we could interconnect things in a way that we would not have been able to do just by looking individually at, say, the original or traditional engineering type solutions. We had to be able to see it as a whole, and to do that, you have to look at things in a more holistic way. When we're taking these ideas now, and we're actually developing a sponge city index for a number of cities, and that should be published in a couple of weeks' time, actually. And we should be able to do that then all around the world to look at how we can maximize these spaces and how we can get the best development with relatively low time and cost impacts. So it's affordable and beneficial rather than huge engineering studies which take a very long time to get to any point of development because of the level of uncertainty. And as my last example, let me just bring that back up one level to the city water resilience approach. Arut's worked for a number of years with organisations like C40, the Rockefeller Institute on city resilience indexes, and then we took that a step further into with the Stockholm Water Institute into the City Water Resilient Index, and looking in a systematic way about all the features that contribute to sustainable, efficient water management, particularly rain and flood, but also water and wastewater. We developed a scoring system, and we can rate the places where we have most problems and most impacts as well. And in doing so, we can classify the areas, we can identify or prioritize solutions, and then those solutions can also be checked again in a couple of years' time after certain interventions have been made. And this tool's been used extensively in places like Cape Town. We also did a small exercise with Minelad here in Manila on that as well. And it helps to guide people through these initiatives, and it really does help also integrate with different parties. And I think the other speakers have talked about it, integrate with different parties in the water management cycle in the most effective way, so that they can all contribute and they can all identify where they fit into the chain with measurable results. So just let me bring that to a quick conclusion. So I think, where does it take us? We have to understand our catchment and the responsibilities, identify and manage our shocks and stresses, and maximise where we can those nature-based solutions so that we're delivering in an integrated way, and hopefully that will give us a much more sustainable and hopefully a net zero future as well. So we're managing. And we've got a little bit more information which is available on our website if you want to have a look at it. And I think if the presentations are shared after the event, then you'll be able to click through for these links, and feel free to approach us if you've got any questions or you'd like to talk about these examples anymore. So I think there you go, Siri. I think that covers everything.
You. Thanks, Adrian. And thank you for putting your email address there on your final slide so that people can get in touch with you. Of course, the presentations can be made available upon the request of our participants. So thanks, Adrian. And we'll jump in straight to our panel discussion. And we'll run through some of the remaining questions on the Q&A. And thank you for everyone, for our panelists, for being so responsive, and they've knocked off quite a good number of the questions already on. Well, they're done now. They're in the answered section, but we still have a few, 7 of them in the list. Let me start off by asking a few questions, but I think we'll start off with you, Adrian, because there's a question here in chat which says, Sir Margs, and this is from Art Gerald Godoy, and he says that why is government participation not included in your approaches? So perhaps you just failed to mention it. You might want to, give some examples of that.
I think a fair question, and in the examples I was talking about more about specific solutions, but government participation or urban management, should we say, in a more general sense, yes, it's essential. And in those ideas of like the City Water Resilience Index that I talked about, it's essential that you bring in all of the players or all of the stakeholders, because they've all got a different view and they all actually need to contribute. You can do it with one organisation, but that one organisation only has part of the solution. You do need all the parties in there. So yeah, to get any of these outcomes, it has to be a multi-stakeholder engagement. And yeah, you have to, and government or the people setting the rules and policing those rules have to be an essential part of that to make it work effectively.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And let's see, Michelle, there's a question addressed to you from Finn Meneses. What satellite imagery do you usually use in your work?
Yes. So
Okay.
Yeah, we work
Go ahead.
very closely with the European space agencies. So we take the imagery from their satellites, and in the specific case of water utility monitoring, we use two types of imagery. The first one is sort of microwave and C-band signals, and that allows us to monitor the ground movement. But in order to monitor the vegetation, we use simply the visible spectrum. And what's important here and what is really beneficial is that this information can be captured remotely, right? So you don't need anybody on the ground. The satellite passes over the Philippines on a regular basis. So it allows us to really have a long data stream of data sets that can be analyzed in the past and then on an ongoing basis moving forward.
Right. Thank you. So it's really up to date imagery, right? As the imagery is captured by satellites.
Correct.
Great. Next question. This is for everyone. So this is an interesting. I've not heard of this terminology, and perhaps Adrian or Anna or Attorney Kay, no, can answer this. I'm not so sure. It says that this is from Jason Pinza. He says, has anyone attempted or executed MAR? It's Managed Aquifer Recharge Techniques to help the sustainability of water resources in the context of climate change. So maybe it refers to groundwater extraction. Is that right? So perhaps Anna, this is for Adrian or Attorney Kay can answer this question. Managed aquifer recharge.
Yeah. Would you like me to go forward first?
Yeah.
I mean,
let's
so
go, Adrian.
I can't name any examples in the Philippines. I'm not sure about the level of groundwater use in certain areas in the Philippines, but I've certainly seen that has been done in other locations. Groundwater, treated water is re-injected or allowed now more to infiltrate back into the natural environment. And what we're seeing in a lot of European water companies is that now moving slightly away from the harder solutions and into more softer solutions, more reed beds, sort of and less intensive treatment, and they're allowing that water then to go back into aquifers, and they do it also where they've got major aquifer extraction. I know Thames Water in the UK has been doing that for a number of years because they take a lot of water out of limestone aquifer. So it does. So it is being done, and it's part of the process. And if you monitor how much water is in the aquifer, you also can control, what you're putting back in as well. And I think Anna talked about it with the saltwater extraction. You have to look at it as the complete picture.
And in your example, in what you mentioned, is that they use the reed beds to clean the water, sort of like a green engineering solution for that before it gets reabsorbed, right, into the under the surface of water.
Yeah, so it has much more time and ability to get out to soak back into the environment in which it came from, rather than just ending up as another point injection into a river. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. And any more thoughts perhaps from the other panelists on that? There is a question here about rainwater capture. Hang on, I think it's been answered already, but there's a question about rainwater capture and how is it clean? So I think, Adrian, you mentioned a lot about rainwater capture and instead of underground cisterns, the detention water detention facilities. Can you answer that question on how is the rainwater? Oh, here it is. This is it's from Anonymous. So this was addressed to Anna Lu. I'm interested in rainwater harvesting, and you mentioned that it is not potable. Is your company thinking of studying the possibility of making rainwater potable? And Anna's answered it. And for the benefit of the people who are not on the chat, Anna, can you please answer that live, kaya, please?
Yeah, sure, sweet. No problem. So what I mentioned earlier was a rainwater harvesting facility specific for hand washing. And this is a CSR project that we implemented in a barangay here in Davao City, which didn't have access to piped water. So especially during the time of the pandemic, hand washing is our first line of defense in preventing COVID. So that's what we implemented. So we haven't yet thought of doing this on a larger scale level, or even on making it potable and making it Philippine national standards for drinking water. Of course, it's something that can be explored.
Okay, good. Thank you. Um, this is for another. I'm going to ask a few questions that have been answered on chat, kasi some of it might not have been are not visible to the people who are not on the Q&A. So this question is from Gay. I had to look up this place. No? This Elmer Montales said he's from the LG of Arakan. I had to look it up on Google Maps that it's in Cotabato. Ang sabi dito is that they are one of the UNICEF's target LGUs for zero open defecation before, and they're already doing municipal-wide zero open ZOD, no? So we plan to scale this up in these projects. Perhaps can you? There's also a similar question earlier on ZOD. In what ways perhaps is water.org helping in this campaign?
Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, through our water credit program, we work with financial institutions to provide solutions, maybe for sanitation or water. So through that water credit program, we're able to bring in financing at the household level so they can build their toilets and proper waste management. On the collaborative effort, we've been partnering with UNICEF, not just to zero open defecation, but rather safely manage safely manage sanitation, if you may say. So it's not just about eliminating it, but resorting to a safe way of managing.
And then just a follow-up on that, there's another anonymous question. It says that, what are your thoughts on developing water resources in rural areas? No, this was answered by Attorney K, but perhaps you might want to answer that, Anna or Gay or
Yes.
Kay. No?
Yes. So actually, we've been partnering with local government in the rural areas. So definitely, I mean, on a personal level, when the pandemic happened, I actually sort of migrated or created a second residence in Batangas, and I mean, it magnified the challenge on water. It's amazing that even Batangas, a very popular province, has those challenges in water. So definitely, I mean, we have a focus on the rural areas. We recognize that to this time, I mean, people are resorting to deep well, water rationing. Yes, it's existing in the cities, but it's more, I mean, it's more widespread in the rural areas. So we have that presence, and we are aware that we have to we have to implement our operations, especially in the rural areas.
Mm-hmm. Anna or Attorney K or Bill?
Yeah, maybe just to add also in the rural areas. So we've also partnered with the Davao City here in Davao City. No, we've also partnered with the Davao City Water District and the local government unit to reach because of the wide geographic spread of Davao, not not the entire city covered by or served by the. So in areas, especially the far-flung areas, which have no connection to water, we're looking at ways on how we can provide water to them, whether it's through other sources within their area that we're doing for rural or far-flung areas.
Okay, thank you, Anna.
So for Manila Water, we have the Manila Water Philippine Ventures, which is a subsidiary of the Manila Water Company of Quezon. So this would be the ones that are in the other areas outside Metro Manila and Rizal province. They're the ones in partnership with our other LGUs in the locals.
Okay, the rural areas, Attorney K.
Yes, and then for the rainwater harvesting, we have that in our La Mesa Dam facility.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have a question here from Mr. Agatep. There you go. Let's see. Maybe Adrian can answer this, or Attorney K. Any plan of the two concessionaires to tap seawater for drinking? Oh, Bill, yeah, raise your hand.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple of questions, Sui. One is for Gay, and the second one is for Adrian. So,
Mhm.
for Gay, could you just walk the audience through the mechanics of your water finance program, right? Because I think uh, you explained it before to me that giving a loan to the household
Yes.
enables them to both service the loan, and then they can use their free time for more productive uses,
Mhm.
and they're like getting a job, or starting a small business, so that they can get started and get the water access, and they become more productive. But I think if you could explain to us the mechanics between how you get the funds through some intermediary to the household.
Okay. So as I mentioned, we work with the financial institutions. I mean, for now, mostly microfinancial institutions, which includes Ramon Aboitiz Foundation. We teach the financial institution on how to structure, adapt a water and sanitation loan product. Because if you look at across financial institutions, they don't have such a thing as water and sanitation loan product. They have a housing loan program. And it's a different mindset, different way of structuring it. So that's the technical assistance we provide. We help them market it, we help them structure it, we capacitate their staff to understand it. And once adopted, this enables households to tap into these loans. I mean, historically, Bill, I mean, the way to sell it is like, I mean, from our experience, you look at this with the risk environment we have right now. You look at the water and sanitation loan products, the NPLs are very low. Why? Because it's a basic necessity. If you put it in a personal level, I'm renting a condo. One of the controls that condominiums put when you don't pay your dues is to cut off your water, right?
Right.
So and you'll never go wrong. It's a viable product that nowadays should be adopted by financial institutions because they can never go wrong. I mean, we have a very liquid environment, risky environment, but with water and sanitation loans, this is a way to really diversify your loan products in a very good way, but at the same time addressing or helping households create their initial credit footprint. So that's how it works.
Okay. Thanks, Gay. Uh, Adrian, I had a question for you. You mentioned in your presentation sponge cities.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that a little further?
Yeah.
What that entails,
What's a
what's a
sponge city?
sponge city, right? But also, I mean, obviously, I'm thinking that it's going to absorb the water, but what will it do with the water? When all the rainfall subsides, and how do you treat the water? Do you get rid of the water? Do you use the water for something as part of your rainwater harvest? So, what's a sponge city?
Okay, so I think the first answer to what's a sponge city. So it's a term that I think was primarily used in China for what we might know in other places as blue-green solutions, water-sensitive urban design. So it's about the idea that when water falls on an urban area, the city or the urban space is able to soak that in, to hold it, and gradually either release it or put it to somewhere else where it can be reused. So it could be that it's released slowly. So that means that you're managing the impact on the downstream river and potentially the next city along the line, because we have to remember, you have one city on the river and then the next one 10 kilometers downstream. Water comes off one, it floods the next one. The sponge holds it so it only goes out at a measured rate, or it's fed to somewhere where it can be used for like irrigation. Or one of the most common examples it's talked about is the managing of the public amenity space. So say the trees that line the road or the park, and in managing that, giving the water, holding the water, the trees take up the water, they'll flourish, they'll provide a canopy. In doing so, they cool the temperature. So that gets into the cycle of slowing down the process of the urban space heating up, and in due course, obviously saves you energy as well. in cooling the urban space. So it's about the integrated solution. So where does it go? It goes effectively where you manage it and where you try and help direct it, and also into the groundwater as well. It will soak in and will infiltrate in the right places.
Great.
Yep. Yeah, great. No, thank you. It's something I think that we should be thinking of in some parts of the Philippines, at least, or many parts where we have a lot of excess rainfall. We don't manage it, and somehow we need to design environments to be able to absorb or to hold the water, to make use of the water over time. No. Back to you, Sui. There might be other questions in the chat in the Q&A box.
Correct, correct. But that actually got me thinking about the coalition of cities that line the Pasig and Marikina River, right? That was put together after Ondoy. So I wonder if that's something that can be put to use there. So let's see. This is an interesting question from Nataliel Villanueva. And I think this could apply, can be answered by everybody here. Now, how can we mitigate water shortages when El Nino comes? So open to the thoughts and suggestions of the panel. Perhaps Attorney K, I guess we do get a lot of, in Metro Manila, we do get a lot of the water shortage issues during El Nino. Is there something that can be done kaya in our part of the country?
Yes, so we make sure that we're able to discuss this properly with the MWSS, who's actually the one in charge of developing the water source. So as we know right now, we only have the Angat here in Metro Manila, and 90% of our supply actually comes from that, and we're dependent on it. So right now we're developing other water sources, and hopefully that would address and mitigate that concern on the water source issue. And another thing would be our management of our non-revenue water. It's something that we really make sure to always consider, because as you know, the non-revenue water is we were able to put it down from a level of 67% prior to Manila Water's entry to the E-zone to we've lowered it now to not more than 15%. So specifically, we have an NRW specialist team who works on making sure of all these leakage detection and risk mitigation. And currently, we have our specialists having some van fully equipped with leak sounding equipment, mobile office, and internet for conducting leak detection, planning, and analysis on site. And with that, we make sure that we become a global benchmark for the NRW levels.
Great. While I have you, Attorney, there's a question from Romulo Agateps asking any plans for the two concessionaires to tap seawater for drinking. Have you heard of any plans on that? Seawater for drinking water?
I think we have, I'm not sure about the studies specifically, but we can learn from our current concession that we would be having in the Saudi Arabia area. So our Manila Water Asia Pacific has actually already gained that concession in Saudi Arabia, which we know are sourcing it from seawater. So we can learn from that.
We have raised hands.
Here, we're not yet doing it because the cost would be really high.
I understand. We have raised hands from Anna and Adrian. Ladies first, Adrian. So Anna, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to chime in on El Nino, but I might as well chime in on the desalination. So case right now that one of the challenges to desalination in the Philippines is the prohibitive cost because it consumes so much. So that's the biggest driver to the cost of generating water using desalination. But certainly that is something that we need to look at, especially in areas where they don't, where either the groundwater is contaminated already, there's already saltwater intrusion, or where they don't have they don't have a ready source of surface water, then definitely something that we can look at. To add that it's also being done at smaller scale, for instance, like the store, they're doing desalination already, but a bit at a much smaller scale, not yet at a big enough scale to be able to serve as their municipality. And then just adding on to the question on El Nino, one of the things we can look at is what I mentioned earlier is a conjunctive use of groundwater and surface water, which is what Davao City is doing right now. So then this allows aquifer to recharge. So while they're using mostly surface water in times when there may not be enough supply, then they can easily bring their deep wells online. Of course, there's also like watershed, making sure that we'll be able to retain the quality and the quantity of water available for use.
Thank you, Anna. Uh, Back to now Adrian, Gay, and then Bill.
Yeah, so actually, I mean, Anna's mentioned a couple of points that I was going to make, but I believe both Manila Water and Minelad have looked at using desalination for supplying Metro Manila. You have to remember that, say, Minelad is running the Pitatan treatment plants from Laguna Lake, and they already have an element of its brackish water at times. They know that it's a very costly solution, and also we have some very big challenges of water quality. Desalination requires some quite high-end technology. You get contamination in the membranes that they use for desalination, and it will really knock the ability to do it. So it's about that integrated thinking, but I do believe that it's part of the overall solution. It can be used in the small scale communities, but also, shall we say, to top slice where you haven't got quite enough peak demand. So for a short period of time, it could be part of a cost-effective solution to deliver. And I believe that was what was done. I can't remember if it's Barcelona or London. They built a desalination plant to top up when they have shortage of their main surface water resources. So it is part of the solution. And linked to the El Nino issue, this is not something we should react to now. This is something we have to plan ahead for. And we have to be planning 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead. And it's a very difficult thing to get our heads around. And really back to the issue of this has got to be managed by probably national government and then the local government, because no private entity in its own right, in the way things are set up in the Philippines at the moment, can control that. It has to be national policy. And if we don't plan far enough ahead, and we really are talking of timeframes of 10 to 20 years, because big surface water resource takes that long to develop, that's the only way we can manage the effects. So we have to plan, predict, and manage that far ahead.
Great, good response there. On to you, Gay.
Yes. So it may be worth mentioning one of our partners, Palawan Water, has already been implementing desalination and utilizing solar power. So I think that reiterates the point that local governments should be innovative and should also try to find ways to partner to solve the water crisis. Because the more, I mean, where there's innovation in addressing the water crisis, it can really achieve scale and impact.
Great, yeah, it's good, no? And, innovation, the portfolio of different water sources. Bill, you would like to add to that?
Yeah, again, I have a couple of questions. One is for Michelle, and the other questions for everybody. Michelle, in the you use all this great satellite imagery and to get data on water and on moisture and things like this. Now, I was just wondering, is any of that same information used, say, by agricultural companies or Department of Agriculture in the Philippines? Because it seems to me that's a critical piece of information needed by DA.
So, the work we do can also be applied to other sectors. So, we have applications that work in the energy sector, in the agricultural sectors. It's essentially the same concept applied to different stakeholders. We haven't done so in the Philippines so far. Our focus has really been on the water sector, but I'm sure as our presents evolve and as we develop our projects in the Philippines, we'll be talking to everybody about these applications as well.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. No, because they sound useful for other sectors. I have now a question for the others, and we've talked about rainwater harvesting throughout. No, how practical is it to get it done on a retail per household basis? Okay, meaning we're capturing water from rooftops and things like this. Of course, it's going to be untreated. It's not going to be potable, but is it practical for use in some other use like cleaning or watering plants, gardens, that sort of thing? Is that a practical solution?
Do you want me to go first? Well, I mean,
sure, Adrian, go ahead.
Yeah, reusing for irrigation, yes, definitely. And there are examples. I mean, for example, like I know ADB, for example, in their facility in Ortigas, they capture rainwater. They use it for maintaining their facility, as it were, the plants, the gardens. So yes, definitely. The challenge on a more potable nature, though, is the variability. The amount of water you would need to store, especially where the Philippine climate is one of intense short duration rain and then relatively extended periods of relatively little rain. It's quite difficult to manage that quantity on an individual household basis, and that's why the centralized system, especially for urban areas, would come in. But yeah, it needs to be. I think it needs to be part of the solution, and maintaining that rainwater so it's not contaminated then makes it more practical to store it. And if you can do that, then of course it's a lot simpler. The other thing I'd just pick up there, though, is actually one other thing is you look at somewhere like Singapore, where they have their new water system and they recycle their wastewater. I think that's actually an essential part of the solution, because that's about not taking water out of the environment and being able to treat it and return it back locally to the people that are using it. So again, it's sort of linked. That's something we should think about in a dense urban areas that we have in multiple cities around the Philippines.
Thank you. That's useful. Sui, back to you.
Thank you. I think we've run through all of the questions in our Q&A. Let me see. Desalination, we're done. Hang on, I think I saw one about satellite imagery and climate change. Okay, this might be useful. This might be for you, Michelle. How can we mix climate change adaptation and mitigation with urban water planning? And I think there's one also related to using satellite. How does climate change affect the water supply using GIS application?
So, the fact that water is getting scarce is just the reality right now. So there's not so much we can do to address that at the source. But what we have to do, though, is to be better at managing the impact of it, right? So non-revenue water remains, a big problem worldwide. I think in Manila, Manila Water and Maynilad have done a fantastic job to improve on this. In the regions, it's a little bit more difficult, I think, outside the main urban areas. So we need to cope. So this is adaptation. This is exactly what it is finding ways, finding technologies that are going to help us to reduce the non-revenue water problem and to ensure that we can maximize as much as possible what we can get out of the existing resources.
Right. Great. So we're just going to wrap up with final pitches from everybody. I'd like you to answer one question. And we'll go through everybody. Let's start with the ladies. So the question is, how do we get affordable quality water for all? So if you can just say one thing, and we'll add on to that as we go through everybody in the call, in the panel. So let's start with si Attorney Kay, and then si Gay, and then si Anna. How do we get affordable quality water for all? Just one thing, and then we'll add on to that.
We have to make sure that we have all the water sources developed that we can, so that it can easily be accessed, and the treatment process would be done. So that would really make sure and help a lot in having affordable water for access to every community.
Get all the water sources ready. Next, Gay. How do we get affordable water for all?
I think we have to contextualize the solutions. I mean, there's such an inequality in terms of access to water and different kinds of infrastructure. I mean, you have far-flung areas that don't have the proper infrastructure and cannot be accessible by any infrastructure. So maybe it's not about tech solutions, but rather going back to the basics such as rainwater harvesting. Secondly, innovation. We have the sachet culture. I really want to implement this. I know it's happening a bit in a number of emerging countries. Pay as you go water, the concept of pay as you go. This will increase the access to finance, especially for lower income households who cannot afford unpredictable bills. They just get as they needed, right? So innovation and contextualizing solutions.
Correct. Great. Innovation and contextualized solutions. Thank you, Attorney K, of course, the supply. Anna, how do we get affordable quality water for all?
Right. I agree with Gay on innovative water solutions, but to add to that, I think it's also protecting our water resources, properly managing them, and of course, proper planning, thinking ahead. Proper planning and development, especially in urbanized.
Great, thank you. So planning and managing our water resources. Thank you. Michelle, on to you, and then Adrian for Adrian and Bill for the last words.
This is a very, very difficult problem. It's got many dimensions. And I think what is important is sharing. There's a lot of initiatives everywhere in the Philippines, worldwide. People are trying new things. And it's very important to participate through global forums, through associations in the Philippines, and sharing experience, because it's so difficult to keep up with everything that's happening everywhere that we need to make that a bit easier and sort of fast track some of the processes with access to information.
Great, thank you. And thank you all for being in this sharing session. Adrian, how do we get affordable quality water for all?
Yeah, for me, I think it's planning ahead, thinking through the problems that you think you're going to have and predicting the solutions, putting things in place so it's not reactive, because that's a very cost inefficient, bad way to do things, and then managing those, whatever you've put in place effectively, so that we use it to its best regard and we don't waste the investments that we make, which I think unfortunately is something that we've seen happen in a lot of places so far. You put a lot of money in, the solution's not used properly, and it doesn't deliver the benefit that it was overall intended to do. So we have to manage effectively.
Thank you. Thank you. Well said. Spoken like a true engineer. Thank you. And Bill, on to you. And for our closing remarks, back to you, Bill.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sui. Well, this has been an extremely interesting discussion. One of the most interesting I think we've had in Livable Cities Labs, and we've had many of them. We've covered a broad range of topics today, from credit and grassroots access to water by water.org, to bulk water production and water distribution by Apo Agua and Manila Water, to satellite imaging and AI to manage water projects by Resitec, and to nature-based solutions, water management and rainwater harvesting practice, and other aspects of master planning by AROP. In a country with over 3 million people still without regular access to clean water, we need to look at all these aspects of water management and access in order to meet this sustainable development goal. I want to thank all our speakers today, Attorney Kay, Anna, Gay, Michelle, and Adrian, and of course, Deputy Ambassador Alistair Totti, for sharing their insights and experiences. I hope all our participants and cities have been able to pick up lessons which may be applicable for their respective areas and regions. And my thanks, of course, to Sui for moderating and guiding this discussion. Before we close, may I invite all of you to sign up for our next webinar on this topic. Will be on digital health, data and analytics for better public health systems, which will be held on 23rd of February, another Wednesday from 3 p.m. We will look at digital health as a way to better manage future pandemic and other health hazards, address illnesses, particularly non-communicable diseases, and promote health and wellness. In a post-pandemic Philippines, the use of data and analytics and ICT in medicine and other health practices is critical in strengthening our communities and building better public health systems. So if you're interested, kindly sign up for that particular lab. Also, reminder just to please answer the event evaluation form, which you will get as you exit the Zoom, or look for the QR code if you're on Facebook and you can access the survey there. We need that feedback. It helps us improve uh, our labs. No? And again, I'd like to thank all our partners today, especially the UK Embassy, who's been a long partner with the Livable Cities Challenge, and also the League of Cities of the Philippines and Globe Telecom. And to all the participants, thank you for joining us this afternoon on what has been a very, very interesting discussion on water. Uh, Especially in a place that can be plagued with too much water or no water at all, depending on the time of year and location. So something that we should be looking at and managing as a resource very tightly, I think. No, so thank you very much, and again on behalf of Livable Cities Challenge, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at our next Livable Cities Lab. Enjoy the rest of the day.
It was once all about the race. If you weren't ahead, you were out of the game. But when everything stopped, we saw the chance to change the game and begin a new path. This time, the bottom line won't be our finish line. This time, we'll chase investments whose real interest is care. This time, every step we take doesn't just change the world, but protects it. This time, our tech advancements will propel human betterment. This time, we will run the longer race, because the most rewarding pursuit is leaving a world greater than what it is.